moment of silence for the men and women in the armed forces, our first responders, our veterans, those fighting the good fight in Ukraine, and those suffering from military conflict in the Middle East. Thank you. Sal, do we have anybody?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
John Spatola.
And before Mr. Spatola, as he's walking up to the podium, yes, sir, I'd like to read the public hearing notice. Legal notice. Oh, thank you. Please take notice pursuant to sections 405 and 406 of the Town Charter. The Milford Town Council will hold a public hearing to hear public comment relating to the following. The Milford Homestead Exemption Ordinance is proposed to revise ordinance related to the Milford Code of Ordinances as authorized by said charter sections 405, 406, and Chapter 98 of the General Statutes. Said public hearing will be held in E. Paul Martin Room, 6 p.m. A copy of the proposed ordinance on file at the town's clerk's office. Mr. Spatola.
Good evening. My name's John Spatola. I live at 8 Pleasant View Road in New Milford. As a lifelong resident of New Milford, I support the Homestead Exemption Ordinance, which will provide New Milford residents a valuable opportunity with property tax savings to long-term financial stability. A property tax homestead exemption especially benefits our elderly, lower-income families, and those on a fixed income. Let me share two interesting statistics. First, states with the highest effective property taxes, as expressed as a percentage of home values, Connecticut ranks third, according to the Property Tax Competitiveness Index. Secondly, Connecticut ranks 47 out of 50 states with the highest property taxes. And that's according to the Effective Tax Rate Foundation. Connecticut's average annual property tax paid is $6,213.98. There's only 4 states in the U.S. that pay more in property taxes. Property taxes are regressive, requiring the elderly and lower income taxpayers to pay more of their income in taxes than the wealthier taxpayers. The main reason property taxes are regressive is that the home values are a much higher share of income for the elderly, the lower income families, than for wealthy families, because property taxes are based on home values rather than income. Our current tax law provide no relief for our elderly residents who are more likely property rich and cash poor. Many elderly, lower income and fixed income families are forced today to choose between spending their limited income on high medical and food bills versus taxes. The Homestead Exemption Ordinance will achieve across-the-board tax relief by sheltering a certain amount of a home's value from taxes, and the largest tax cuts as a share of income will go to our elderly, lower income, and middle-class taxpayers. I would like to compliment Mayor Bass for bringing this tax proposal forward, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, but you can't read my writing.
Well, yes, so we're gonna,
Well, you used to type.
we'll take it, Mrs. Spatola. Robin Mann?
Good evening. The homestead exemption looks really exciting, and I'm really excited for it. Robin Mann, I live at 143 Stilson Hill Road. Right there?
Yep, got it.
Better?
No.
Move your mouth.
I'll speak loud like I do in Croat. Thank you. There you go.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just have a bunch of questions. Being a lawyer and I read the ordinance, those questions come out of the language of the ordinance. And it concerns me that we're considering an ordinance that has so many open holes. I'd like to see the ordinance tightened up. I'd like to see the impact that the ordinance and its action will have on all the community in New Milford. First question that I really have is, how does this exemption work, and how does it work with regard to the mill rate? So I think that the population deserves an answer to that question. How will the town council determine what percent, 5 to 35%, is necessary in a given year? So the second question is, will the community be involved in helping to determine where the mill rate, or where the exemption should lie at any given year? It looks to me that the town council has the opportunity to utilize the exemption each year, establish an exemption amount, and we deserve to know how that's going to happen. And I don't think that there's any information that's been provided about it. The second questions I have to do with the application process. It looks like that if you don't apply when you become eligible for benefits, you don't have the opportunity to apply later. The language is pretty clear as written. So, current residents in 2025, we all have to apply. We don't have the opportunity to do it again later by the language of this application, 1964. And that seems punitive. So I think it needs to be addressed. Third question I have, what does it cost for the town to implement the process of application and enforcement? What is it that's going to happen in terms of giving notice? What's going to happen with regard to actually implementing this so it's fair to everyone? Finally, I have lived in a place where taxes are adjusted in such a way that second homeowners and certain commercial property owners and certain landlords don't get the benefit of those taxes. And I have seen litigation as a result of that. Those homeowners who aren't residents don't have a voice in this room. They don't have a vote. If they get upset about this, which they may do, which I have seen happen in other places, they will come after the town council. They will make you known that they are upset through litigation that's very costly, very risky. I think that needs to be addressed and considered before we vote in this ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Whitfield.
Good evening. My name is Brian Whitfield. I live in Gaylordsville, Connecticut. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and honorable members of the council. After listening to the young lady and gentleman who spoke ahead of me, there's very little I can say, except, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for attempting to, in the future, reduce our tax liability. We live in such a beautiful tax and spend state. And they just love to do that to us. And I want to congratulate you on what you've done for us insofar as our AAA bonding twice in a row. You conservatively run this town, and you work very, very hard for the taxpayers. I am not as bright as the two who spoke ahead of me, but I want to thank you. Thank the members of this council. Let's try and help the taxpayers, because we're getting beaten left and right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Doris, William.
My name is William Anderson. I live in New Milford here also, 37 Country Farm Lane. I've been in this town, my wife and I have been in this town over 40 years, and we've seen a lot of growth, big time. From the time we came up Route 7 with a single lanes on each side, now we have doubles, and it's still growing. We need more roads. But my point is that I listened to the people that have spoken already, and I just want to learn more what you can do and help us with our taxes, and I think it's going to be, I was hoping that we can hear that tonight, but I'm here just to listen and understand. Thank you.
Mr. Kopchak.
Good evening. My name's Tom Kepsiak. I live at 94 Long Mountain Road. I want to start by questioning if this evening's public hearing should be continued to a later date. I can find no evidence that the town council has reviewed and commented on the draft of the proposed ordinance that is mentioned in the legal notice for the hearing. The issues related are sufficiently complex to warrant that careful and thoughtful review, so the real-world consequences of the exemption and the process for granting one are well understood. I have a number of concerns about the text that are careful of the text of the proposed ordinance that cannot be effectively addressed in the context of a public hearing. I suggest that a careful review of the draft be done by a subcommittee of the town council and a public hearing scheduled after that review and a follow-up review by the town council. Going into the substance of what I was hoping to say, I'm going to summarize because there are a lot of folks tonight. I want to summarize the comments that I made during the recent town council meetings regarding the proposed homestead exemption. In my opinion, there is no need to panic about the likely impact of the current revaluation on property taxes. I provided to the council a spreadsheet explaining why. By creating two classes of personal residential property which would be taxed differently, the exemption is blatantly discriminatory and therefore subject to legal challenge as a violation of civil rights provided by the equal protection provisions of the federal Constitution. By reducing the total assessed value of the grand list and therefore requiring an increase in the mill rate needed to provide the income for the town and the district each fiscal year, the exemption discriminates against property owners who provide rental housing by forcing them to pay higher property taxes than they would if all residential property were assessed at the same percentage of market value, thereby increasing their cost and therefore exposing renters to an increase in their rental costs. The proposed exemption similarly also discriminates against the owners of commercial property by forcing them to pay higher taxes than they would if the total assessed value of the grand list were not artificially reduced by the exemption, requiring an increase in the mill rate, as I mentioned above. Lastly, I want to make the council aware of the information I found during a brief search regarding the legal liability that would be associated with the enactment of the proposed exemption. That information indicates that not only the town officials implementing and administering the exemption, but also the town council members who vote for the adoption of the exemption could be held personally responsible for a civil rights violation and bear the legal accountability for that violation. I've included in the handout the very brief search that I did online that outlines the concern. Obviously, I would have to defer to the town attorney to see whether he agrees or disagrees and what the extent of the likely impact would be. So anyhow, one of the council members and I had the chance before the hearing to begin a robust conversation about what I've been saying over the past couple of meetings. My suggestion is that we should take the opportunity to have that conversation as a group. This is a big deal, and it has an impact on both the town and the community that warrants careful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Sal Winkowitz, 6 Winternet Drive, New Milford, Connecticut. I am a resident of New Milford for the past 20-something years. I'm a town council, and just like everybody who sits here. So I have listened to the people. As a town councils and Mr. Mayor, we're trying to save money for people because the state is ripping us off. Your benefits that you pay for the electricity, did it go there? No. It's going up, and up. Because those people don't care. That's it in Hartford. We do. Because we sit here trying to save them up. So I hear several things. One is right. We should know more about this. That's why we started the conversation about the whole thing, about the subject. It's the right thing to do. Another thing, Mr. Kopchak is sending us this letter with the research. God knows what it is. He's using words like discriminatory. Against who? Us, the taxpayer. Makes absolutely no sense to begin with. Second of all, it's an obscene to go and try to say that something like this can be sued. Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. We're trying to discover we can save money for the people. That's pretty much all we do. If that's wrong, we know who's going to be suing. Mr. Kopchak is going to be suing the town because obviously we're doing something illegal, which makes no sense. Now, I did the research too. There are several states that actually approached this thing because of what's happening with the rising cost of living. Texas and Florida. It's going on right now. Thus far, I haven't found anything that Florida is falling apart or Texas. I could say that it's quite the opposite. I think Connecticut is falling apart because they tax us to the point of fascination. So if anything, I'd say let us do what we can. Let the mayor work. Let the council take care of the business. If we can save some money for you, great. Otherwise, you're going to get taxed up to wazoo. 70% of our taxes are schools. Have you ever found why you're paying so much taxes? And next year it's going to be even more. Absolutely more. So if someone comes here and scares the heck out of me that I'm going to be sued because I'm sitting in town council, it's a bullcrap. Come up with a solution. Not try to sue me because I'm sitting in town council. Thanks so much.
So, do we have anything?
That's it.
That's it. So, Randy, so some things were made in, for the people who've come to these meetings, there's no talk back and forth, unfortunately, with meetings like this. We will be taking up more of this at our town council meeting, starts at 7. But Randy, some of the things that we can talk about in a generality was, first of all, the ability of just having primary residents that can partake of this tax incentive, so to speak. So could you talk about it? Because I did ask you, could second homes be involved as well in this procedure?
That's the last time I talked about this pretty in-depth. I researched it pretty in-depth. And not to downplay, Tom raised some good points. Very good points. The research that I've done tells me that primary residences are lawful to be included and to exclude non-primary residents. The reason for it, the Supreme Court tells us that there is a rational basis for a legislative body like the town council or the town meeting to try to protect primary residential properties rather than vacation or weekend properties. And that's the rational basis. There are 3 types of examination that a court does on cases like this, discriminatory cases or claims of unfair treatment. One is whether or not the legislature, the town council, is imposing on someone's fundamental right by an action. If they're enacting something that imposes on a fundamental right, then a court is obligated to employ what's called strict scrutiny to see whether or not that should be imposed upon, and there's a reason for it, beyond just a reason. It has to be very substantial. There's another one that is if you're dealing with something that's suspect classification, that it would be constitutional. Then the court would examine it with what we call in intermediate scrutiny to determine a balancing act. A case like this, the courts decided on a primary residential issue that is not a fundamental right. So the rights afforded to a primary residential area or a home or person are not the same, does not have to be the same. Classifications are okay. And that case is back in 1989, Allegheny, Pittsburgh against another town. Classifications are okay as long as there's a rational basis for it. That's the lowest level of scrutiny, a rational basis. The courts have generally decided, because I'm concerned, I had the same exact concerns that Tom had when I started this inquiry, saying that this is entitled to a review by rational basis. Is there a rational basis for granting these differential, for creating these classes? And classifications, remember, under a case called Reineck, classifications are lawful as long as it does not impinge upon a fundamental right. And that's the difference. The courts found that this is not a fundamental right, that you can differentiate between primary. The mayor and I had this discussion 3 hours ago, because I was in the middle of researching it. Now, having said that, there are other methods and means that people have found across the country to make life miserable for legislators who do this. I'm not going to give a primer on this, but there are. As far as discrimination and civil rights violations under 20 U.S. Code 1983, the courts categorically, thankfully, rejected that. So when you're acting in your legislative capacity on a tax exemption related to a residence, not commercial, there's a Maine case on that, as a matter of fact, you're lawful. You can do that. The question is whether or not you want to suffer the lawsuits. They will happen. They will happen, irrespective of what we find in the in-depth. I'm not talking about AI research. I'm talking about real research. You're going to find some cases. So the reality, I call the Fulton County, Georgia, County Attorney's Office concerning their exemptions, and they have them all the time. They have lawsuits all the time. The biggest thing that is done generally is an appeal from somebody who doesn't get the exemption, claiming that they should, because of, as Tom says, because of an unfair or selective treatment. So that, in a nutshell, I'm not going to get into the detail of it for reasons, and it's lawful. It's really a policy issue. It's not a legal issue at this point. Legal issues are going to happen. Suits are going to occur. Claims are going to be made. They're made all the time. The ordinance that Brian drafted is pretty comprehensive. There are some issues he and I talked about already that he's addressed and is addressing. And I mean, we don't like it to be as bureaucratic as it is, but unfortunately it is. But I can tell you that it is lawful to do this, but does not mean you're not going to be sued. And that's the bottom line of this.
Can we, just so the public is aware, with the state statutes the way they are, can second homes take part in this homestead tax
The
exemption?
statute does not allow it. It says for primary residence. I mean, that uses the term primary in the statute. By the way, this allowance, this enablement, is 3 lines long. In a 20-page ordinance statute, it's 3 lines long. There's no guidance whatsoever. No other town has this. No other town, and no other town attorney I spoke with wants to have it either. But that's not a town attorney's job. Town attorney's job is to tell you what the law is on it. I can tell you the Supreme Court does not find issue with classification of these properties of this type. If you're saying somebody has to live here a certain period of time, that's illegal. A durational residence is not authorized. If you're saying that only if you own the property as of this date, that's wrong. See, that is a separation that's not rational. See, that's why. So that's my findings. I'm sorry to have spent so much time on this, but the questions are legitimate. Any questions?
Anybody else from the council? Chris?
Randy, so as we know, Florida and I think Texas have
And
similar
Georgia and
statutes.
South Carolina.
Are you aware of any pending litigation at the federal level?
Oh, yeah.
That might change the legality of this?
Yeah, the second prong of what you said is key. No.
Okay.
The Allegheny-Pittsburgh case goes back to 1989. The Nordlinger against Hahn case, California case, goes back to 1996. You're not going to change the overriding principle that legislative bodies are allowed to classify properties. That's the overriding principle. That's not dangerous. Yes, the first part of your question, yes, there's litigation all over the place on this. There was one, I think you told about Colorado, Pete? That there's ways that there are people going or getting around the litigation process. So it is all over the place. But the fact is that it's new in Connecticut. It's new in New England.
Randy, one question. So, new is good, I guess. I don't know, we can discover the staff. So there is no precedence that would tell us not to do it?
No. Not in Connecticut, not in New England, I could find.
Well, we live in the United States. It's,
No, I haven't found anything that says it's unlawful.
Okay, so it's discoverable. We can actually use this as such. Would it make sense to have a referendum?
Well, that's up to you as a matter of policy.
Well, we're asking lawyer.
It doesn't have any effect on whether or not the law is valid that you create. Don't forget, an ordinance, when you create an ordinance, it's presumed to be valid by law. So whether it's done by referendum or by the legislative body, it really doesn't matter.
But if you have a referendum, people are voting for something or against it.
Sure, but that's your decision as politically, whether or not you want to.
It's not political. I mean, we want to save money.
It doesn't make it any more legal, is what I meant. In other words, if you pass an ordinance, that has the same strength of law as if it's done by referendum. In other words, that doesn't provide any immunity if it's a referendum.
You can still get sued even if it passes through.
Oh, yeah, because somebody will bring a declaratory judgment to have a judge declare that it's wrong. Yeah, this is law school 101. Yeah.
And then Mary Jane, and then Katie.
Are we still in the public hearing?
Yep.
We are.
Okay, so maybe what we should do is continue with the public hearing, let the public have their say, and then answer all the questions.
There was, Mary Jane, at that particular time, there was nobody.
There's nobody else?
No, I was the last
And
one.
then Sam.
I think other people.
Have you?
Anybody
For the
else?
6 o'clock?
Yeah, David Gold, 12 Vinebrook Drive.
Come on up.
Put it out, put it right there.
Come up and speak.
Okay, I will.
You were not
Thank
at
very
6
much.
o'clock then.
My name is David Gold. I live at 12 Vinebrook Drive in New Milford. I came to New Milford and settled here in 1974. I worked at, now I'm forgetting, J.P. Stevens. I rented an apartment. I met a beautiful woman. I got married. I bought a condo. In 1983, I bought my first house, and I'm still living in that house today. I paid off my mortgage. I had 2 children. I raised 2 children then. Probably my wife raised them more than I did. But I'm going to take credit too. They both went off and got married. They both own their own houses, and they both have their own children. So I'm living the American dream. I paid off my mortgage many years ago. I find my taxes now is my new mortgage. So I say to you, I commend you for doing what you're going to do, because I read in the paper, in the Danbury News Times, that we have the opportunity now to lower the tax burden on the average person. Now, I heard a lot of people say words, but I didn't hear numbers. So I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, but I'd like to say, if you take a $100,000 property, I'll make it very simple. You take a $100,000 property, you tax 70% of it, you're going to be taxing $70,000. With reevaluation, again, I don't know how much my property is going to go up, but I know it's going to go up a lot. So I'll throw in 20%. You're now taxing $120,000. If you go down to 60% on that, your assessed value is $72,000. That brings your tax base up higher. So don't tell me you're going to lower your tax base by lowering that. That is not true. Now, I made it easy because, again, I wanted to make it where I could figure it out pretty quickly. But if you go 60% or 65%, your tax base is going to stay on an equal playing field, or if not more than what you just passed in your budget, we just passed in our budget now. Now, what about the argument? I also read in the paper that there's an argument, which I heard a lot of people discuss, that it's unfair, it's an unfair tax burden for the people that own multiple properties. And I will argue that is not true. And you know why it's not true? My house, the value is going up, but I am not earning any other money on my house. Matter of fact, I'm paying capital expenses on my house to keep the value the way it is. Besides, I got mean neighbors, and they probably beat me up if I didn't mow my lawn. So anyway, if you own another property besides your primary resident, you are making money off of that property either in rent, allowing people to graze their sheep on your property, or you're selling wood on that property, and you're not paying any capital expenses other than more than I'm paying. Now, I am not rich enough to buy more property, but I've saved some money during my time, Because as I said, I got my kids out of the house and I changed the lock so they can't come back. So, I take my money and I put it in CDs in a bank. Now, I already pay taxes on that money and I put it in CDs, but they're going to tax the interest on that CD. And then once in a while, I even take a chance on the stock market and I buy stocks. And at the end of the year, I get a letter saying, this is your capital gains and this is your dividends. You're going to pay taxes on that. So why not the person who owns property they're not living in, that they're renting it, or it's a business that is making extra money on that, pay a little bit more than the person who just has a primary residence? So I refute the argument that you are making the other people pay a greater burden of the taxes than the regular person. And I think, again, I'd like to say, and to finish up, I commend you people. And if you're going to get sued and you want to hire a good lawyer, I don't have to agree, but I'll gladly defend you because I think you're doing a really good job with this. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Next person.
Hi, I was on the list. Irene Scribilo, 205 Pumpkin Hill Road. My only concern, I mean, lawsuits aside, where's the money going to come from? The town is going to be getting less money as a result of a decrease. I, as a homeowner, welcome this, but you have to look at the impact to the bottom line budget. And in reference to Mr. Gold, if people who own second properties and rent them, they're just going to make it more expensive for people who rent here. And rents are hard enough. I know so many people that cannot find affordable housing, and I will talk about that later during the town council meeting. But my question is, have you researched, how are you going to plug that hole? You're giving the taxpayers who are homeowners a gift, but, you know, money isn't manna from heaven. So that's all I really wanted to mention for you to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, can I refute something that she said? Go ahead. You've got another variable in your hands. You've got another tool. You got the mill rate. That's how you're going to plug it. You change the mill rate. You've been doing that all the time. Every year, I watch the mill rate go up and up. And I don't have a problem with that. Taxes are necessary. There's two things in life I was taught by my father. And one of them is taxes, and the other thing we don't need to talk about. But you have the mill rate. You could change the mill rate. If you see you're not getting enough money in, change the mill rate. When I first came here in 1974, I believe the mill rate was something like, again, I'm getting senile, I think it was 16, 17, 18%. Now, what is the last mill rate we just passed? 31 point something percent? You could change the mill rate. So that's, all these arguments are baloney. And also, I agree with you, renting is hard. Renting is hard on the renter. But taxes are hard on the person who owns a house. Come on. You're just looking at one side. I'm looking at the whole thing. We all have to pay our fair share of taxes. I have no problem paying taxes because it costs money to run this town, and the services are great. And I enjoy sitting back, having a cup of coffee, watching somebody else plow the road so I don't have to get out there with a shovel and everything. So, I mean, it is costing money to run this town. So you can look at your own little box and say, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. You can. All you got to do is put your heads together and do it. You got the mill rate to change. You got the assessment rate to change. And now we're throwing in the fact that we're going to have a huge reevaluation. And it comes every year with a 0 or a 5 next to it. So that means 2025, this is going to happen again in 2030. So you can do it. The trouble is, a lot of people, it's not easy to get off of that used to what we're used to doing. We got to move ahead and do things that we're not used to. And it might cause a little problems, but we got a lot of smart people here, and I'll give you my phone number. You can call me up. I'll give you some more suggestions. Let's get this working. This is what we need. Because like I say, in another few years, the mortgage I paid in 1983, these taxes are going to eclipse that and everything. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anyone like to come and address public hearing? Katie, you had a question?
Yeah, just for Randy, just wanted to clarify that primary residence is termed that you reside there for 100 80 days or
Yeah,
181
the statute
days?
doesn't talk about days, but the fact is that that's exactly what custom has determined.
Yes.
That's where you primarily.
So this,
let reside.
and in this case, it wouldn't really be any different than anybody who's got a place in Florida and also here is.
No, not really.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions for the public hearing? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. I'd like to take a motion to adjourn this public hearing. And do I have a second? Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. We will be visiting this topic again at our town council meeting.